Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2021 Fantasy Football Week 11 rankings, breakdown, start, sit, and debate. You can find all of the updated rankings in the description and up on DKNation.com. They get updated every single day. You're looking for the full injury cheat sheet of who's hurt, who's not, who's probably in, who's probably out. Find that down in the description. And if you subscribe to the Mayo Media newsletter, completely free to do, remember to smash a like to the episode and sub to Mayo Media Network. Play in the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Listeners League as well. $15 to play, 3 max entry, no rake whatsoever. Link is now available to you, the viewers, down in the description of the video and pod. Jake Ciely from theathletic.com is on the line. Before we got into air, we were arguing about Wayne Gallman and Mike Davis because we're sad people.
No, that's because this is the time of year last year, maybe a little bit later, but this is when people were chasing Samaje Perine and Savon Ahmed last year. And like, this is why I go more running back heavy. Yes, you could have had a couple injuries, but you know what? Even if I have Barkley, he's coming back, and I have Barkley down the stretch. And there was wide receivers that went down, and there's wide receivers that haven't gotten hurt and are underperforming vastly for your top 12 draft costs. So we have this debate every single year, but this is why I go running backs, because I don't want to have this conversation and argument about Mike Davis and Wayne Gallman, even though we're going to, because that's where people stand. I mean, we're trusting Jordan Howard, Wayne Gallman / Mike Davis, talking about Adrian Peterson, Deonta Foreman. Like, this is the insanity that we deal with every single year.
Now, the whole crux of the debate is, I think, after going back and watching the game right before I came on, it did seem like Mike Davis was primarily still running with the ones in the moment. And like you mentioned, that Wayne Gallman was still mixed in on the field even before Cordarrelle Patterson went down.
Right.
But the moment that Matt Ryan left the game, Mike Davis also left the game. That would be my indicator that he's still going to be their primary back. And it's probably not going to be like a 90-10. It's probably like a 65-35, 60-40, 55-45, whatever it might be. But I think that the scale dips towards Mike Davis. Plus, we've seen him just more used in the passing game so far, and maybe they'll continue to use Wayne Gallman that way too. But we know that even when Patterson was catching passes out of the backfield, Davis still was as well.
Yeah, and that's where I lean a little bit different, mostly because I don't disagree with what you're saying, and that was where I was coming from, is that, yeah, he was being sprinkled in even before Patterson got hurt. And you're not wrong to say, like, once the game was what it was and Patterson was, you saw a lot more Wayne Gallman. But I just look at the fact that the rushing passing split might still lean to Mike Davis, but I think we could be looking at like a 60-42 Wayne Gallman. And of course, that puts him almost on the same tier if it is Mike Davis being more involved in the passing game. And you can look at other split backfields. I mean, this could be a Broncos, the bad version of the Broncos backfield, but the difference is that Melvin Gordon's the lead and getting more of the passing game work than Javonte Williams. But all that being said, is I think it could be very close to even a 50-50. And just because Wayne Gallman looked better, like just objectively looked better than Mike Davis has this entire year, I lean Gallman slightly. But the reason I asked you is because I saw you changing your sheet, and you originally had Gallman over Davis. The gap that you have, I wouldn't even have the gap that big, to be honest with you. Like, you have the gap, where is it, almost like 10 spots. I'd almost have them back to back. You know, here's a better comparison. It's not the Broncos. It's James Conner before he got hurt, before this injury to Chase Edmonds. It's James Conner and Chase Edmonds. That's the comparison I would make.
But in a way worse offense.
Yes.
So I had for spoiler alert, I had Gallman, like Jake said, at 29 and Davis at 39, and I just swapped them after going back and watching it, and it led me to, Mike Davis is actually going to be the guy who's starting on the field. He'll get most of the touches. The issue is that you don't want to play either of these guys probably, so maybe we can move Mike Davis back down, because I have Nyheim Hines at number 31. I could see this being a good Hines game against the Bills, especially, I mean, they're 7-point favorites. That seems like a really big number for Indianapolis against Buffalo, considering by transitive property, Indy beats Jacksonville, Jacksonville beats Buffalo, therefore Indy better than Buffalo. But what do I know? But if they're going to be trailing in this game most of the time, you can see just a lot of dump-off passes. But you know that their primary goal is going to be to feed Jonathan Taylor. So there's a bit of an up, a bit of a down. Like, would you play Mike Davis / Wayne Gallman? Let's just say whichever one that you prefer. Would you play either one of those guys over Nyheim Hines?
I'd probably go Nyheim Hines.
Okay. Would you go Ty Johnson?
You know I love Ty Johnson.
So yes, Ty Johnson.
I'd go Ty. Yes, I go Ty Johnson.
Devin Singletary.
No.
Is he your
You've
worst
said this
place?
all year long. The entire Bills backfield, you said that everybody got paid off because they all scored a touchdown. But I even mentioned this in the waiver column because I was mocking anybody who would potentially ask about Matt Breida with his 2 touchdowns and 4 touches. I think he finished the game with 6 or 7, but it was the first 4 touches. He had 2 touchdowns. No running back in a blowout had more than 8 touches. You've said this the entire year. You argued with me in the preseason where I said, you know what, because I can get Zach Moss in the 10th, 11th round this year versus where we were taking him. I didn't have him last year, but he was going in like the 6th round last year. You said, I still don't want anybody. You were right. I told you that a couple weeks ago. You were right. I'm still doubling down on this like you. I do not want a Bills running back. I'm never starting a Bills running back. I don't care if they score a touchdown. I'm still not starting a Bills running back.
If you had to start one, I'd start Zach Moss. But I don't have that worry.
I actually don't have a single Zach Moss, Devin Singletary share anywhere.
It's probably for the best. And because the whole point behind it, if people don't remember all the way back, listen, I'm right about so few things that I have to bring this up. I didn't bring it up. You brought it up, but now I want to talk about it because I was right. It's just Josh Allen is just going to steal any upside. Like, what is the upside for Zach Moss realistically? Like, what's the best possible game that he could have? Like, maybe not the 100th percentile outcome, but like the 90th. Is it like 14 carries for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns?
We've known each other for too many years. I almost said 13 for 75.
There we go.
So, like we've been doing this for too long.
And that's like the best outcome you could get.
Yeah, that's really, I was saying it was 13 for 75 popped into my head for some reason. I was going to say 1 touchdown. You went with 2, but yeah, that's real. And the biggest value is still coming from the touchdown. I don't think you ever see a 100-yard game. 15 carries and he happens to bust one off for 30 yards. And maybe he gets to 100. The Zach Moss, I would guess so, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong. I was going to say, does he have a 100-yard game to his career yet?
I would doubt it. I don't know the last time that.
Nope.
I think that the last Bills running back.
81.
I think the last Bills running back to trump 100 yards was that guy that played in Week 17 last year, who I had never heard of.
I thought you were going to go all the way back to Fred Jackson.
Oh, Fred X. I loved Fred X. It's unfortunate. Fred X, if you just moved him 7 years into the future, would have been Austin Eckler, as we talked about him. And I remember when we were doing like the back and forth at the time, like you and I were just in the corner of Fred Jackson. Like, this guy is so good at fantasy. And
I do remember that.
And it was just, so much has changed over, I'd probably say 7 years or so. Like, no, Fred Jackson sucks. Like, he's not great in real life, but for fantasy, he's awesome. He gets like 6 catches a game. He's constantly used on the ground. What is it?
It was not even last year. The last time a running back's rushed for 100 yards,
Shady?
Week 12, Devin Singletary against the Broncos of 2019.
Wow. It's been a while.
It's been a while since
been a
then.
while.
In the
Let's do this. Let's do the safe running back range. So the guys that you're most definitely starting. So McCaffrey, he's back at number 1. He can touch the ball like 8 times a game and score 20 points. People forget how good Christian McCaffrey is.
Stupid.
He's averaging like 27 points in the 2 games he's been back. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet. It's just incredible. So McCaffrey, Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Ezekiel Elliott, Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, A.J. Dillon at number 8. Leonard Fournette, DeAndre Swift. You're playing all 10 of those guys. You're also playing Alvin Kamara if he plays. If Kamara doesn't play, I'll just put Ingram into this spot. That'll work out. Nick Chubb, if he's back. If not, Dearness Johnson is in this spot. David Montgomery at 13. James Conner, James Robinson. I think that's your like solid 15, and then you can start making cases for or against guys. You would say Antonio Gibson is for sure one of those guys?
No, I would say Elijah Mitchell for sure is one of those guys. 27 touches. I know Jeff Wilson got 10, but it is clear. I've been saying this to you. I've been saying this to everybody that would listen. I have joked about Shanahanigans for years as just as much as anybody, but what happens is once Shanahan makes a decision and the person is healthy, he sticks with that guy. This is why people were drafting Raheem Mostert as the guy this year, is once he gets a guy, he does stick with him until something happens, an injury, multiple fumbles and stuff like that. But for most parts, it's been injuries if you look over the years. It's just once that injury happens and 2 or 3 people get involved, that's when we get Shanahanigans. And that's the thing is right now, there aren't 2 or 3 people. it's Wilson and Mitchell. And Wilson's clearly the guy behind him, and I would grab him in every single league who's still out there because if something happens to Mitchell, we know the upside of Wilson. But Mitchell is the guy, 27, and he's going against Jacksonville. So I would say he's in the safe range more so than Gibson, just because Gibson looked healthy. It was a surprise. It was against the Bucs, so the numbers weren't great on a per touch basis, but he got the 2 touchdowns. I just worry that they gave him 20 plus touches and that shin. Like, what if he, like, I would not be surprised. We're doing this before we get practice reports on Wednesday. I would not be surprised if Gibson doesn't practice for another Wednesday going forward and is potentially limited every single Thursday. He scares me week in, week in, week out. Meany and I on the show on Monday did rest of season. Would you take Gibson and we got over 20 running backs before we got to Gibson.
I can see it. Like, there's bye weeks, there's injuries. I have him ranked at number 16 right now. This is really strange. I don't know what happened with this.
You talking about the far left?
No, yeah, someone took Saquon Barkley out of my rankings.
You have hidden cells. That's what you have.
Do I?
Yeah.
Where do you see those?
You
well, I can't.
Here, unhide rows. You have 17 and 18 is missing, and then 13, 14, 15 is missing.
I do not know how to do that.
I don't know if it'll let me unhide. There you go. Unhide.
There he is. There's Saquon Barkley. Hi, Saquon.
And I'll unhide the other one for you.
Thank you.
There you go. There's Josh Jacobs.
Oh, there's Josh Jacobs. Did you hide him to begin with?
No, somebody did it. Somebody hit him on you, or you hit it.
There we are. Saquon Barkley's number 13 this week.
So I would have Barkley higher.
It's just matchup first week
I know,
back.
I know.
I know. I'm just. You could have better. Like, listen, I feel like you could have safer options on your team than Barkley. And as you know, I'm a big fan of Barkley the rest of the season. After this week, that schedule gets super easy. And I do have to kind of
barely an inconvenience.
Yeah, I do have to hedge against it right now too, because it is Monday. It's a Monday night game, and I mean he's not 100% playing in this game, as we know, on a Tuesday afternoon. So maybe if it's like yes, he is for sure starting, then I can move him up a little bit. But at this point, like, you have to factor in that you might not have another option because we don't know what's going on with Devontae Booker either, because he could still be out.
Oh, that's true. But also, they're here. You get me Saquon Barkley. Here we go. Barkley endorsed on the show for you.
Oh, Barkley came over and we were talking. Hi, Barkley.
Yeah, I said Barkley like 3 times, so she came over.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was going through the rankings. I was like, where the hell did Barkley go? Yeah, people are hiding cells on me. That's no good. So he's at number 13. That would put Montgomery at 14. Listen, you can play Elijah Mitchell. Like, I have him at number 18 in the rankings, one spot behind Gibson. I think Gibson's touchdown upside is higher. And although it's not like he is a fixture of the Washington passing game, Elijah Mitchell, he had the one outlier week a week ago. And other than that, like, he does not get involved. Like, 27 carries, less than 100 yards. The matchup is way better, obviously. But I just think that without the receiving game, that he's sort of like the better version of what Latavius Murray was doing earlier in the year.
Sure, but I think 2 weeks ago we saw him using the receiving game, and he did run 5 routes in that game. That just wasn't part of their game plan. The only person that even got involved in the backfield was Juszczyk, and he ran 13 routes and had 1 target. It just wasn't part of their game plan. So I'm not going to throw that out completely, that Elijah Mitchell isn't going. I'm not saying he's going to get 5 targets per game. I think he falls into like the 2 to 3, like back with Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the beginning of the year, when like Edwards-Helaire, you're like, why isn't he getting more involvement in the passing game? Because Darrell Williams was pulling some of that himself. I think he falls in that 2 or 3 per week. The Nick Chubb, 2 or 3 per week.
So let's see what he had been doing here. He had the 5 for 5, like 5 catches on 5 targets against the Cardinals. He had 2 for 2 against the Cardinals earlier, 2 for 2 against Philly, but he has had 1, 2, 3, 4 games without a target as well. Like,
that's with Hasty active. Hasty was out. So I will say this: if Hasty's out again, I still say it's Nick. I'm not saying 5. I'm saying 2 or 3. I don't think he's completely bereft, but you're not wrong. I just think he does get a sprinkling of passing game work.
And you think that I should move Josh Jacobs into worst place?
No, that wasn't the person in worst place.
I thought you hit him, so he wasn't on my sheet.
No. I told you I didn't hide anybody.
No, then who is the worst place then?
It's the new Jared Cook. It is the new Mark Ingram of running backs. It's Myles Gaskin. It doesn't matter if it's a good matchup. Doesn't matter if it's a bad matchup. Doesn't matter if they're going to be pass heavy. Doesn't matter if they're going to be run heavy. It doesn't effing matter. Myles Gaskin shows up when you don't want him to. Myles Gaskin shows up on days that he shouldn't. And then when we trust him this is why we had the argument about Jared Cook for years, after 2 great games, and then he let you down in a game where they were winning the entire time. Myles Gaskin is worst effing place. He is the new Mark Ingram.
I was talking with Justin Freeman, who runs runthesims.com with me. You should subscribe to Run the Sims, by the way. I know you, Jake, are subscribed to Run the Sims. But
I agree.
All the viewers and listeners out there should be subscribed to runthesims.com/Mayo. Or what's your one? /ranks? Boom, there you go. Get a discount off of everything. But we were just talking about the Myles Gaskin, because the projections love Myles Gaskin this week. And he's like, I think I'm going to have to go in and manually edit him down so he doesn't appear in everyone's lineup when they run an optimizer. He's like, I understand. He's like, but when you just like try to project out this game, he's obviously in a great spot, yet no one trusts him. It's weird. I have him at number 21.
Nope. Don't want him. Especially because it's a game that he's honestly worse in games where they have the lead. So if you expect the Jets to surprise you, maybe.
Well, it's it is a 3-point game. Like, it's not expected to be a blowout.
I would definitely play Michael Carter over him, who in a bad game still found the end zone. And that's with Tevin Coleman being active. That's one spot. But if it's my team, this is now going back to the years where you're like, I don't care. I'm not ranking Mark Ingram. You tell me where to rank Mark Ingram, blah, 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 blah. So if you want to keep him at 21, that's fine. I would start Carter. I would start McKissick. I would start Darrell Williams. I would start... That's where it starts to get dicey.
Let's see.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to say the next name.
Well, I'm gonna stick with Gaskin where he is, and I fully expect Tua to score like 3 rushing touchdowns in this game. That would be sort of like the next step of just killing Myles Gaskin.
That's certainly fair. I see Darrell. Do you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire in your ranks?
I do. Number 30. Yeah,
you do.
So I wanted to talk to you about that because I have Darrell Williams at number 26, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 30. I don't know what to do with these guys because it looks like Edwards-Helaire is going to be back, but they can't just make him the starter again because Williams has been way better.
And I did. So for my waiver column, I do the duck report. I think we've talked about it on your show before, where I give them 1 to 5 ducks and how worried I am. And normally it's people coming off bad games or 2 weeks in a row, like TJ Hawkinson's in there and stuff like that. So I put Clyde Edwards-Helaire in there. I said, normally I wouldn't talk about somebody who's 1 been out and hasn't played, and 2 not playing, but I gave him 2 out of 5 ducks. It's not a huge concern, but to what you just said, I would, in my gut, rank Williams over Edwards-Helaire, at least for this first week, because we saw the split before Edwards-Helaire got hurt. Was already Darrell Williams was seeing passing game work, and Edwards-Helaire wasn't seeing the volume he wanted to. 2 games he did run for 100 yards, but 2 games he only ran in the 40s. And again, it was only 2 or 3 targets per game. The way that Williams has played, the way that offense woke up last week with Patrick Mahomes trusting other wide receivers, going to Darrell Williams as his first or second read instead of his last-ditch effort read, I just don't know that you see the way that the Chiefs just worked out and immediately say, Edwards-Helaire, go back to going 70% of the touches. So I'm with you. It could be wrong, but I think where you have them is a fair spot. Like I said, I'd play Darrell Williams a little bit higher, but I'm not going to argue with you much. And I would have Williams over Edwards-Helaire.
These rankings do not have Damian Harris in them right now, although he could still potentially play if he passes concussion protocol on Thursday night. That would leave Ramondre Stevenson. I have him at number 20 in the rankings, and I have Brandon Bolden at number 38, primarily because they're favored by, although I don't necessarily, when I talk about this on the spread show, I actually think Atlanta against the number is probably the play in this game. But they're favored by 7 points. We just go by that. And listen, I'm wrong all the time, so the Patriots can win by 50 in this game instead of by like 4 or something and not cover the spread. But in games where they're winning, and even the amount of routes that he was running was frankly shocking to me. Like, I thought that it would almost be a 50-50 split. Like, if you had just told me what the score was at the end of week 10, where the Patriots win by like 35 points, I'd be like, oh yeah, if Harris didn't play, Stevenson probably had a really big game. But his production wasn't necessarily tied to a blowout. He was the one getting the ball like early and often, but he was getting all the goal line work, and that's really all that matters.
4 goal-to-go rushes. 4. That's huge. That's inside the 5. So goal line. He had 4 of each. All 4 of his goal to go, which is inside the 10. All 4 of them were actually goal line, which is inside the 5. So yeah, he's getting all that work. Nobody else got a single touch, even inside the 10. And then you mentioned he got the passing game work too. I like where you have Stevenson on the flip side. I know we're talking rankings, but I said this, and I'm curious just if you agree. I'm saying sell Stevenson now because I just had this conversation with Lauren of your network on my show, and I said that I'm selling Stevenson because there's 2 bad outcomes and 1 good. 1 good outcome is he's the guy, Harris is out, has another great game. Yay. The two bad outcomes is he is the guy, there is no Harris, and he has a letdown game, and his value immediately goes out the window because Harris would come back next week. Or Harris does come back, and it's a 50-50 split, and it's Bill of tricks to go down the Shanahanigans, and it's a frustration. Like, right now, I feel like it's smarter to get away from Stevenson than it is to hold and hope that you get a repeat performance.
Yeah, unless you know Harris is out and you desperately don't have a running back and need to win, then you're going to have to roll with him and play him. I completely agree. I talked about this on my waiver show from Monday, was what's going to happen when Harris comes back. It's like best case scenario, they split goal line touches. Then that helps no one. Then they're both kind of useless.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you on that. Looking at it from last week, running backs, rushes from 5 yards to the end zone. So inside the 5-yard line touches. Dalvin Cook led everyone with 5. Then it was Gibson, Stevenson, and AJ Hotfire Dylon at number 4. So that's where we're going with this. Myles Gaskin had 2. Good for him. Didn't score, but he had 2 of them.
I don't care.
What else do we have here? Miles Sanders could be back.
Could. And then that entire backfield is just stay away.
I would play. Howard would be the only one I would consider playing right now. At least
and I wouldn't even feel great about it. No. It's going against the Saints, too.
Of course not. No one's going to feel good about it. But if someone gets a carry from the 1, it's him.
I was going to say, they would have to fall into the end zone. Potentially, like, legitimately, like, fall in with the offensive lineman. So it would be Howard. I wouldn't want anything to do with Boston Scott. Miles Sanders is just going to make that a mess. Get away from Jordan Howard if you can right now, too. Although I don't think anybody's paying for Jordan Howard.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's just like, man, Jordan Howard, let's go. Oh,
I mean, you might be in less experienced leagues. I still see trade offers that come through, and just like, how do you not even do that? Like, I saw one for today asking about Saquon Barkley, and it was one of the Bills running backs, and then like a wide receiver 3, and I'm like, why are you even asking? Just go do that.
Chris Carson, do you expect him to be back?
Somebody knocked on the front door. Barkley got upset. Did you say Chris Carson?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the question with Chris Carson?
I have him in the rankings. I think that he's going to play.
Okay, if he's going to play, part of me says what I said earlier this year. It was 2 weeks ago with the David Montgomery situation. I said, if a team brings back a running back and the lead option is playing well, and they bring him back either ahead of timeline or like right ahead in front of a bye where they could have let him get that extra week. So I'd say go right back to the other guy. That was the David Montgomery. This one, I'm not so sure that Chris Carson gets the complete full lead again. I definitely think he is the lead because he's the better option. They need him. He's better than Alex Collins. I just don't know how much work he's going to get in that first game back with this neck injury that can linger. You have him at 25. I mean, I'm not going to play any of the Buffalo guys over him, so I would still play him over those guys. So I don't hate it. It's just it worries me at the same time.
I'm completely with you. I would expect him to play 55, 60% of the snaps, depending on, like, if they get down by a bunch, you'll probably see.
That sounds like a good number.
You'll probably see Travis Homer play a bunch if they're way down in this game, like we saw against Green Bay. But I just assume that he kind of takes over he'll take like 80% of what Collins was doing. Collins will still play a bit, and then you'll get like a sprinkle. What happened to Rashad Penny? Like, he's not even hurt anymore. Is he just bad?
I just said that on the show. I said, we waited for years for Penny to be healthy, and he's finally healthy, and now all his talent's gone. Like we saw the flashes for years, and he could never stay healthy, and now it's done. Yeah. Drop Rashad Penny. There's no hope for him at this point. I mean, Homer's arguably in front of him. I think what you said is the good point, and if you're hoping in starting Carson, you're hoping this is actually a close game, because I think if you get up by a lot or you're behind by a lot, they would just rest Carson.
Donta Foreman, number 36. Jeremy McNichols, number 44. Adrian Peterson, number 45. I don't like any of these guys, but this is a pretty good spot to run all over the Texans.
It is, but it's basically the Texans on a better team. It's the same type of backfield because Foreman sees a lot of the work. Peterson gets red zone work. Foreman gets a touch here or there too, but they kept bringing in Peterson for those red zone opportunities, and then McNichols is just kind of, I guess, it's the Texans. It's David Johnson, Philip Lindsay, and whoever they decide the third option is going to be any given week from the rest of them, including Scotty Phillips, who I think is still hurt now, though. But point being, it's just the better version of Houston, so I want nothing to do with it.
Foreman.
Oh yeah, Houston has Royce Freeman now too, don't they?
Oh yeah, they signed Royce. You got to have 4 running backs at all times and use all 4 of them. That's known.
I thought they have like 5, don't they?
No, because that's Scotty Phillips got hurt.
Is he officially on the IR though?
I don't know. When I went and looked at their depth chart, he was no longer on it, so I think he is.
Okay, so they're just back to 4. Okay.
Yeah, so we're whittling them down. It's soon going to be Philip Lindsay season. I'm just waiting for it. Foreman would be the one if you had to play one. I still think that McNichols is the one that you would want to play. And the issue is that Tennessee has just been better than I thought they were going to be, and they're not like underdogs in any of these games or playing from behind. But the moment they start playing from behind, McNichols is going to be in the game. It's like McKissick.
Yeah, and you would hope so, but I'm trying to pull up Tennessee to see their schedule here to see if we can find Patriots, Jaguars, Steelers, 49ers, Dolphins, Texans. It's the rest of they probably should not be severely behind the rest of the season.
I agree. Unless the Patriots kind of wax them. Do you think the Patriots are actually good? Like really good, or are they
really good or
like
good?
Would you say that they are a top third, middle tier, or I mean, obviously they're not a bottom third team, but are they like a top 10 team or like a top 15 team?
I was gonna say I would go into 4s, and I would say they're the 2nd, 4th.
Yeah, so they're somewhere between like the 9th and 16th best team in the league.
I was gonna say 8 and 15. So there you go. We're again doing too much together. We're just barely.
Okay. If you had to play Jeff Wilson, I think that you could and pray for a touchdown. Like if you just had to randomly pick someone up to fill in. That would be the only guy I'd really look to, though.
In this game. And that's to go back to the Elijah Mitchell thing, too. There's like they were in control the entire second half, and still you would have expected more of Wilson. And maybe that was only because it was his first game action after being activated last week and didn't even get a touch. And this was his. So more, but I'm with you. I think if you went for Jeff Wilson, you kind of hope that we just gave Elijah Mitchell 27 touches. We are winning this game handily. So let's give Jeff Wilson 15. And then all of a sudden, Jeff Wilson and Elijah Mitchell both finish as top 20 running backs. That's conceivable.
Probably no Jamal Williams. Jamar Jefferson got hurt for the Lions, so that would leave. Oh man, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this guy's last name.
Igwe Bukwe.
Yeah, I was gonna say Nigerian last names really get to me. Say it again.
This one's easy. It's Igwe Bukwe.
Igwe Bukwe.
Yep.
All right, well that is pretty easy. So Godwin Igwe Bukwe. I have it number 52. I can see him touching the ball like 7 times.
If there is no Jamal Williams, I would think we would fall into the Jeff Wilson if he does come back. But as you said, I was actually frustrated. I couldn't, on the Fantasy Pros, I couldn't rank Igwe Bukwe, even though I knew that he was the 3rd option because they still have him listed ineligible as safety. So there he goes. That there's a lot of people that didn't even realize he was the 3rd running back. But yeah, honestly, if there's no Jamal Williams, I'd roll out Igwe Bukwe over Peterson.
Who? I don't know about
even
that.
McNichols.
I don't know about
he's
that.
Clearly
but he's still
number
on
2.
the Lions. They don't score points. I mean, I know he scored a touchdown last week,
but Swift just came off a bajillion touches, and I think that was kind of because they were using Jefferson before that happened, and Jefferson left the game and didn't come back, and then Igwe Bukwe got the touches, and people were like, "Who the heck is this guy?"
That was me. That was me. That was me on my couch with all my DeAndre Swift DraftKings. Like, who is this guy? Get him out of there.
They actually converted 2 people. There's another one too. I don't know if it's a tight end. They converted 2 to the offensive side, or maybe it was a wide receiver. I forget. But anyway, that being said, it's just because, maybe Cleveland's not the best, so I could see the hesitation there. I just know Detroit. I know Anthony Lynn, and I know if going in that Igwe is clearly the number 2 with no Jamal Williams, he's going to get 20% at least, if not 30% of the touches, just because they like to. I think that Swift situation was just because of what happened last week.
Okay, I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Hopefully we can get DeAndre Swift back up into that 90% of the snap shares. That would be great. He'd be like a top 3 running back the rest of the season if he can convert on that, if everyone else didn't steal his touchdowns. But I digress. That's where we are. Let's move to wide receivers. Actually, I do want to let you know, prizepicks.com, code MMN at checkout, or deposit, I guess. You get a deposit match of up to $100. And if you play any 5 NFL plays between Thursday and Sunday, so you can do all Sunday if you want, you can do all Thursday if you want, and make an entry for $7.11. Not only do you win 10 times your money for going 5 of 5, if you go 5 of 5, you get a bonus $50 from PrizePicks for playing in the Mayo Media Network PrizePicks props contest, so you might want to take advantage of free money. Is all I'm saying. PrizePicks.com, code MMN, link is down in the description. Let's just roll through the top 20 here because...
Hey, real quick, Pat. Real quick. I do want to tell you this. So Ian Hartitz, PFF, just put out a chart, and it's the running back ranks in yards after contact and missed tackles. So top right is a ton of missed tackles and yards after contact. Bottom left is you make nobody miss, and you don't even get any yards after contact in general. Guess who's down in the bottom left corner?
Of the guy that doesn't make people miss? Is it Devin Singletary?
Miles Gaskin.
It is Miles Gaskin. There we go.
Worst place, Miles Gaskin.
Wait for him to have 13 catches this week.
I hate Miles Gaskin.
Wide receivers. Devontae Adams back at number 1 now that Cooper Kupp is on bye week. Tyreek, A.J. Brown, Debo, Diggs, Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Deontay Johnson, Keenan Allen. Quick note about Stefan Diggs. I think that now, if you wanted to go get something that, like, if you needed like 2 pieces to help your team for the stretch run, go trade Diggs if you have him. Not that I think that he's going to be bad, but this is the week. This is the first huge week that he's had all year. And listen, I had him ranked, I think, number 11 last week, and I've been having him down like the low single digits, just outside the top 10. And people get like legitimately angry every single week if he's not ranked inside the top 5. But like that's his first great game of the season.
You're not wrong. The one hesitation I have is Buffalo's got one of the tastiest schedules for the rest of the season.
Now, yes, I agree with you. But I mean, I feel like the Jets are a real outlier. That even in the other games where Buffalo has pounded people into the ground, like those are usually the games where Diggs does the worst because they're just like, hey, we don't need Diggs. It's like they really made an effort to get him the ball last week.
That's his first 20-plus point game. The other one where he got close was Tennessee at 19.4. Everything else is 14s or lower.
Yeah,
he's
like,
got 2 single-digit scores.
But he's producing as a good wide receiver 2, not a wide receiver 1. But people,
fringe wide receiver 1.
But people value him as like a top 5 guy.
Right. So what I was going to come back and say, if you can't get that, I wouldn't.
Sure.
Mostly, and the thing is too, you got to get. So this week isn't too bad with Indianapolis. You got to get past New Orleans next week. And Lattimore and that Saints defense has been back to what it was 2 years ago, where that's legitimately worrisome. But New England, Tampa Bay, Carolina, New England again, and Atlanta, especially to finish things off, is pretty decent. Although Carolina's turning the corner too. I mean, this is why, for everybody that's asking, I'm not saying like, oh, this is why people are like, we'll rank defensive playoff schedules for defenses. And I'm like, no, too much changes to begin with. But second on top of it is why I even say take the schedule with a grain of salt, is because I do the last 5 weeks of playoffs and the season. And right now it might rank Buffalo 8th, but another 2 weeks of Carolina playing well, and then New England starts to turn the corner as well. They've been playing better. All of a sudden it's 16th. And it takes 2 weeks for the defenses to change.
If you could get Saquon and Deontay Johnson for Diggs, would you do it? Because I would.
Goodbye. No, I was going to say, could I get Saquon Barkley? Goodbye. You didn't even need to throw in Deontay Johnson.
Oh, you could. Oh, listen, if you're going to trade Diggs, you can get more than Saquon Barkley.
I know, but I'm just saying I'm so with you is that I would give him up and get Saquon Barkley. The rest of this is mostly because also Saquon Barkley. I want the running back, but I don't know. There might be some people that you can't get Deontay because he is a wide receiver 1,
okay,
and he is.
Let's change the name then. Let's say it is
Thielen,
DK Metcalf, who people are really down on.
I was going to even go lower. I was going to say Barkley and Thielen. I would take Barkley and Thielen.
Right? Would you take Pittman and
yes,
Godwin and let's switch out?
Yes.
Let's switch out Barkley. Maybe that name is too good at running back. Let's say David Montgomery.
David Montgomery and Pittman.
David Montgomery and Thielen. Like, if you had to fill 2 spots on your team and you had Diggs to really improve your team, or go find out whoever it's going to be. Like, I don't love.
Well,
Pittman
go back to what I was saying about.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go back to what I was saying about Montgomery. Is Khalil Herbert was playing very well in his time replacing Montgomery, and Montgomery came back and was immediately the lead. So yeah, and I know like I might sound like I'm getting hung up on the Montgomery thing, but I'm just making the argument of like if you're getting a top 15-ish running back and a wide receiver 2 for Diggs, and you like you said, you fill 2 spots, trade Diggs. Goodbye.
This is why I say I feel like this would be the week to do it because Colts, Saints, and then you might be off to the races, but that's 2 tough weeks in a row. And any value that he may have lost by being not inconsistent, but just sort of well below where his baseline that you thought that he would, that now that he's gone way above that, all of his value is back. So now would be the week to trade him if you wanted to. You don't have to, obviously. Number 11 in the rankings, Jamar Chase. Got a bye week, was starting to hit the rookie wall. Not a great matchup against Vegas, but I just love me some Jamar Chase. DK Metcalf, Hollywood Brown, Amari Cooper. It's Amari. Adam Thielen, Chris Godwin, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman, and Terry McLaurin. You're starting all those guys. Lockett at number 21. If you actually just legitimately want to buy low on someone, just go buy Tyler Lockett.
Oh, yeah. Just buy, as you mentioned, DK Metcalf, the entire passing game. I will say that first game for Russell Wilson, I'm not necessarily expecting them to bounce back this week yet. It might take another week. All those reports from all those doctors and all those sites were 100% right. He's coming back way too soon. And I put this in my waiver column that he is so off-target percentage for week 10, Pat, 17.5%. Oh, there's only 3 quarterbacks worse than him in week 10. Carson Wentz, Colt McCoy, and Mike White. Colt McCoy and Mike White, not names you want to be associated with. And that, even if you throw that out the window, let's just say 17.5%. His next highest for the season before the injury was 9.7% for Russell Wilson. If you didn't even watch that game and say you've never seen Wilson look that bad, which is true, that's all you need to know. I would give him another week if you have quarterback options, which I'm sure we'll talk about for your rankings. But Tyler Lockett at 21, I'm still, I'm looking behind him. I know you said it's not a great matchup, but Higgins, Waddle, Smith isn't a bad matchup. Cooks, Kirk, DJ Moore. I go DJ Moore against Washington. I would shuffle them a little bit, but I would have Lockett kind of more in the mid to low 20s.
I just look at it from last week. There was really one play that they really wanted to get going with Tyler Lockett. 80-yard bomb to Tyler Lockett, second in the week in air yards. Just it didn't happen for him because, as you mentioned, that the passes were short. But the fact that that's what they're up to in that offense, even before they had to start coming back in that game, even some third and long situations, they were just screw it, we're just gonna bomb it to Lockett in the end zone. That I know that how he's used in this offense, and I bet pretty heavily on Green Bay last week. They made me a good amount of money. But the healthier Russell Wilson gets, the more I want this offense. So I'd be willing to now kind of buy back into Lockett and the Seahawks in general that maybe he's just better this week.
Oh, I would, and I look, Lockett saying even at 21, his ceiling is top 10. We know that, and especially with those aggressive throws downfield. I'm just saying, second week, I'm not saying bench him until you see it, but for some of those names that I just mentioned, we've seen enough from them that I'm just going with them before I throw him right back into the lineup.
Okay. Well, I do have Lockett number 21. You mentioned T. Higgins at number 22. Waddle, Devonta Smith, Brendan Cooks. I don't love this Cooks matchup at all, by the way. Christian Kirk, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Rashad Bateman, and Cole Beasley. I have Beasley over Sanders. This, to me, and I mean, this is a pure gut thing. Maybe you can stats me out of it, but this really feels like a Cole Beasley over Emmanuel Sanders game against the Colts.
No. So, yeah, I'm not going to stat you out of it at all. I'm going to doctor report you out of it potentially. I wish we would have known. This is why people ask you and me, and they're like, well, what's going on? We don't always get all the word because the team doesn't always tell everybody. Thank everybody who waited till Monday to tell us, by the way, Cole Beasley has been dealing with an injury all of November, and that's why he wasn't 100% for week 10. Boom, right there. He was 5th in routes for the opportunities there. Gabriel Davis clearly passed him. I'm not saying it can't change back, but unless I want to see full practice reports from Cole Beasley. If it's like last week, no Wednesday, no Thursday, limited Friday, it's no way I'm ranking him here. That's why it's a health. It has nothing to do with stats.
How much do you think that his limited capacity on Sunday had to do with the Bills just absolutely getting up and destroying the Jets so early? They were like, all right, well, just go back to the sidelines, man. It really comes down to, I think it's also the report that he's not 100%. I would understand if it was I just pulled it up, and Diggs led the team in 29 routes. So it's not like they were out there for 40 routes. Anybody was. But if you told me he was 13, 14, 15 routes and they pulled him off the team or off the field, sure. But Gabriel Davis, and that's why I say Gabriel Davis was 12. Cole Beasley ran 8 routes, 9 snaps. He did round 8 out of his 9 snaps out there, but that sounds like there's something going on. Interesting. I'm going to keep him there. And I'll keep an eye on that injury report. He was listed with a ribs problem last week. It didn't seem very serious.
That's what I'm saying is like, it sounds like they were masking how serious it was. And now they're saying like, oh, it was more serious than they were letting on. So that's what I'm saying. If he gets a practice in on Thursday, I'm with you. I like Cole Beasley. So, but I want to see a practice. I don't want to see what we saw last week.
31 through 40, I got Kadarius Toney as the highest of the Giants receivers, although I have them all back except for Sterling Shepard, which we're just going to have to watch the injury report for these guys. Thus, click on the rankings to see when they get updated and pay attention to that injury report that I put out. James Washington, AJ Green, Emmanuel Sanders, Darnell Mooney, Elijah Moore, Kenny Galladay, Jamal Agnew, Jarvis Landry, and Tyler Boyd. This assumes no DeAndre Hopkins and no Kenny Galladay. Is the way that I have this kind of rigged right now for the rankings.
No, you have Kenny Galladay. No Sterling Shepard.
No Sterling Shepard, sorry. Yes, I'm looking at Kenny Galladay's name. That's why I said it. This is a tricky area, but I think all of these guys have like real potential this week. It's just half them are going to be bad, half them are going to be good.
They do. It would really come down to, I don't think Kyler Murray plays. And because they have their bye coming up, and I know you have them, I already looked ahead to your quarterback rankings. So I know, and this is another one we're going to have to watch, but I'm just going to bring it up because I know people are going to ask. No Kyler Murray. AJ Green doesn't even rank there for me with no DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay, but Kirk, I would keep Kirk at 26 though.
I would push Kirk down to the 30s, but I would have Kirk the highest.
Yeah, he's averaging like 7.5 targets a game from Colt McCoy. He's the one guy who's been like relatively unaffected, except he doesn't have like the deep shots anymore. But he's the guy that with Hopkins out that they go to.
And I would put him down by like Cole Beasley range.
Okay.
Because even with that, that's what. So, but the rest of those, the only other one that I have the big issue with is Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, he's far number 3. If Corey Davis was out, Elijah Moore back up. But the concern that I brought up last week for Elijah Moore, he stay saved garbage time touchdown. And yeah, we're like, oh, the garbage time counts. I say the same thing.
It does count.
But you also have to look.
If you didn't know, it does count.
You do have to look at the opportunities, and he is by far like way behind Crowder and Davis in opportunities and snaps and routes when Davis is back out there. Because the one concern we had at the beginning of the year was Moore would fill the Crowder role, and Crowder was blocking him because they would use him mainly in the slot. Well, they let him play outside, which he can, similar to Christian Kirk, but probably better than Christian Kirk because he does better outside because Elijah Moore's better as a pure talent. But once Corey Davis came back, boom, he was just kicked back to number 3. And I don't want the number 3 on the Jets. That's really what it comes down to.
This week in this particular matchup, and we've kind of seen this played out against the Dolphins most of the year, is you don't really want the guys who are running primarily on the outside. You do want the guys that kind of split into the middle. Now, it would be Crowder. It's just Crowder seems kind of dusty at this point, although he's still getting volume. If you're going to say that Crowder gets 8 targets and Moore gets 5, let's just say hypothetically that's the situation. I would take the 5 for Moore right now because at least he has the speed to get to the end zone. Crowder's just doing nothing after the catch.
Sure, but I don't even know if he gets 5. That's my concern.
And I think that he will. So I'm going to have Elijah Moore where I have him. Was it 4 touchdowns the last 3 games?
I mean, I'm looking right now.
Now, if Magic Mike isn't starting, then it's a completely different situation. You put Zoomer Zach back there, you don't play any Jets.
Yeah. Here's the thing. So I just pulled it up from last week. Corey Davis was outside fewer times than Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore was outside 73% of the time. Corey Davis was outside 68% of the time.
Well, that doesn't even make sense anymore. Well, that's not good for my case now, is it?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there you go.
Right, well, now I got to drop him down. So now
Braxton Berrios was in the slot 68% of the time.
Why are they playing Braxton Berrios and Jeff Smith on this team still? I don't understand it.
I mean, Berrios only had 12 routes. It's just of those 12 routes, he was in the slot for the majority of them.
But like, why are those guys? Why are those guys on the field?
I don't know. Here's so those are percentage. So for everybody out there that what I'm referencing, those are percentage of your snaps that you ran in the slot and outside. The pure raw slot numbers: Crowder 44, Corey Davis 19, Berrios 13, Elijah Moore 10.
That doesn't even make sense. How is this offense like a real thing?
How are the Jets a real thing?
Stupid. I don't get it. Anyway, so I've dropped him down to number 45.
That's what happens when you hire a defensive mind.
I guess so.
For a team that needs offensive help.
All right, so guys that you could potentially plug in and play if you wanted to. Traquan is kind of like a thing at this point. Like
he would be the one.
Yeah, so I have him at number 42. I have Marcus Johnson at number 43. Like against Houston.
I like it.
He's the James Coe actually got me onto him at 3K on DraftKings this week. I saw him tweet out on Sunday. It's just like, yeah, when Julio Jones went out last time, it was actually Marcus Johnson. When it was AJ Brown who was out, then it was Nick Westbrook-Ikena. So I was like, yeah, Marcus Johnson, $3,000. Let's fire him up. He had a good game.
Yeah, he was out there just a smidge more than Westbrook-Ikena, but the really just comes down to he actually led the team in target percentage at 5, even more targets than AJ Brown. That we expected to continue to happen, but clearly number 2 and a good matchup. I like that here.
DeAndre Carter, I have him at number 60, but like as a potential guy that is 0% owned that you could play.
Could. That really comes down to if Logan Thomas is still sidelined. If Logan Thomas is out there, he's the number 2.
Ron Rivera said last week that like Logan Thomas was nowhere near ready to play, and that I was like, what? And here we are.
Did he really say nowhere near?
That's what he said.
Really?
It was some sort of like really damning quote is what I read from Ron Rivera. Like he's not ready.
Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But it looks like
day to day. Ricky Seals-Jones. Day to day.
Ricky Seals-Jones is day to day with the hip, but like Logan Thomas, like he tried practicing on Monday, and I think he hurt himself again in that practice.
Yeah. So here's the quote: "He's just not ready to be put on the football field."
That's not good.
And that was November 12th, which is what? Friday?
Yeah.
That was Friday. So just not ready. Yeah, all right. So, and they signed Tariq Hemingway. Oh, breaking news, Pat.
Oh, God, what is it?
No, it's just you want to put Latavius Murray back in your ranks. The Le'Veon Bell has been released.
Oh, okay. Let's circle back to that. Don't play Le'Veon Bell. I had that one right anyway, so I don't feel too bad about that. I even had new Green Bay backup Patrick Taylor ranked over him. So if we're assuming that Latavius Murray is going to play because of this, what does that do? I had Freeman at number 28. I would expect Murray to be the number 1 again. Well, Lamar being the number 1, Murray being the number 1 running back on the team.
I would say it kind of leans more towards the conversation we were having before now. Not that Freeman has been exceptional, but he's looked better than I think anybody expected after we saw from last year, where it's the worst version, like the lesser version of the Cardinals, is that Freeman and Murray are going to split a lot more than everything was before. I would lean Latavius Murray because he does have passing game chops himself, but I saw you just slide him in. I'm not playing Zach Moss. I'd play Latavius Murray before I played Zach Moss, one spot ahead of him. But Freeman would fall to like the Mike Davis, Devin Singletary.
Would you play Devonta Freeman or Mike Davis?
Mike Davis.
All right. I'll put him in, just sandwich him right in between Mike Davis and Devin Singletary.
But no, put Murray over Moss and Freeman over Singletary. We're playing both Baltimore options over the Buffalo options.
All right. How did I hide Rose? Who was hiding Rose on me? Now I have to go through this. I was wondering about that last week. Like I was looking through my rankings, and in the back end, like everyone was there. And then I would go click on the rankings, and not everyone was there. I was like, what the hell is going on? Then I just didn't care anymore, so...
Somebody's trying to sabotage you for the. You sure Andercuss didn't stop into your office?
He might. That I don't know. He has nothing to do with
Actually, you would have known because it would have been like Michael Carter, Ty Johnson, Corey.
That
1, 2, and 3.
Let's talk tight ends. No Logan Thomas in the rankings. I got Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, Waller. I'm going back to Gesicki after the bad game. Everyone has bad games. Dan Arnold at number 6. The Hawk at number 7. Pat Freiermuth or Firemouth at number 8. Dalton Schultz at number 9, Dallas Goedert, who might not play, at number 10. Then I have Pitts and Dawson Knox. Pitts has been kind of terrible, by the way, ever since Cuss traded for him in fantasy.
He's been okay, but I would still go, if plays, I would still go Goddard and Pitts before I went Schultz. Schultz, this was the concern I had, is that if all 3 wide receivers are healthy, the tight end gets left out. And I don't think that'll happen every single week, and there'll be games where Schultz does pop off, but it is tight end. And if I'm looking for some kind of predictability, I'm just not going to. Now, if CeeDee Lamb's injury ends up being worse than what it is, and CeeDee Lamb's out, then just forget it. Dalton Schultz is one of the top 3. But if all 3 are out there, including Gallup, Schultz would not be inside my top 10 going forward, period. And I would go Henry over Knox. Henry's shown enough that if you're chasing touchdowns with Knox, you should have just been chasing touchdowns with Hunter Henry.
I guess if Jonnu plays, I like Knox more than I like Hunter Henry. But since I do not have Jonnu in the rankings, then I will put him above Dawson. I mean, Dawson Knox had a touchdown last week and it went through his hands. Like, he was still involved in that offense. He should have had probably.
He is,
he
but
probably should have had 2 touchdowns. He just dropped it.
But Dawson Knox is kind of like Zach Pascal. Is he getting the red zone and end zone looks, but it's 3 catches and you have to catch the touchdown. Like otherwise you finish with 2 for 14.
Well, let's not pretend like if Hunter Henry isn't scoring a touchdown, his like baseline isn't like 4 for 28.
No, but they legitimately are giving all 3 of his targets are all in the end zone. That's the big thing. I'm checking right now. I want to say, did he have all of the end zone targets last week? He did. They only had 2 end zone targets. And he had both of them. He also had 2.
Bourne's touchdown was, what are they calling that, at the half-yard line?
I mean, it's not even showing up as a red zone target.
Well, it wouldn't be a red zone target, but it was an end zone target.
Oh, because then he wasn't standing. Yeah, so it was at the half-yard line. All right, we'll give him Bourne.
Yeah,
so give Bourne that
Bourne's
one. We'll give him
touchdown,
that half-yard.
Bourne jumped at the goal line, caught it, and fell into the end zone.
Okay, fine. But Hunter Henry has 2 and 2. He had 2. The only other person with 2 red zone targets, Ramondre Stevenson, by the way.
Yeah,
so there you go.
He was out there. And he, I guess if Ricky Seals-Jones is actually okay, you could potentially play him as well. Your boy, you've been saying Cole Kmet for years, it feels like, on this show. Probably like the last 3 weeks. But he actually did play well. Like, as soon as Fields started playing well, Kmet was like the big benefactor.
He was, and that's the big thing is that Fields has been more comfortable because he's also running. That's really what it comes to. Real quick, I pulled this up, Pat. Since week 5, Henry has at least 1 end zone target, and he has at least 1 red zone, except for all but 1 game in week 6. He had an end zone and not a red zone, so he's got 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Hunter Henry.
It's pretty good.
Believe.
Pretty good for Hunter Henry. Now let's go to quarterbacks.
That is pretty good. Yeah.
Listen, Lamar had a bad game. I think I'm going to still make him number 1 in my rankings. That's okay. He's playing Chicago this week. Should be a good game for him. Allen, Mahomes, Dak, Brady. I have Kyler at number 6. That's obviously only if he plays. Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz. That's the top 10. DraftKings-wise, it feels like Fields and Wentz should be like your 2 value guys this week. Because I think that Wentz against Buffalo is going to have a pretty good game.
He's got to throw a lot.
Yeah.
I would. So against Pittsburgh, I broke down what's going on with so I mentioned to you last week about Patrick Mahomes, and we saw exactly what happens. Like, this is why I wasn't that concerned, but a mild concern is because Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are smart. Patrick Mahomes needed to trust his other wide receivers. He did in that game. We talked about Darrell Williams and one of the first 2 reads instead of his 5th read, and then it's just blown up by that point. But he trusted Pringle and everybody else and Hardman in different opportunities, and he just spread the ball around and didn't force it. What's going on with Herbert is very similar. A little bit more cover 1, but a lot of nickel and dime. Everybody's playing back on Justin Herbert and stopping Mike Williams from getting deep and forcing Herbert to play short. And he is playing short, and that's why I see Keenan Allen's just been going ballistic. He's basically been like Cooper Kupp without the touchdowns the past couple weeks. But that's why the air yards are just awful for Herbert, and that's why 3 of the last 4 games have been awful for Herbert. Pittsburgh defense has the weapons to continue to do the same. I'd play Rodgers over him. I might even, I play Hurts. I don't care that Hurts is going against the Saints. I'd have Hurts over him at this point because I want to see it from Herbert, because I don't trust Herbert as much as I do Patrick Mahomes, because unlike Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert's not on his level. Andy Reid, another level of the coaching situation. So I'm not benching Herbert. He'd still be a QB1, but he'd be a back-end QB1 until I see him take advantage of other options. And the big thing, the surprising thing is, Pat, is the wins and losses in those games, 17 or fewer touches in all those bad games for Austin Eckler, 20 plus in those better games for Justin Herbert. They need to get Eckler more involved too.
Well, I mean, that's no different than the stat that they showed with Najee Harris and the Steelers against the Lions. Like, every time that Najee Harris touches the ball or has more than 17 carries, the Steelers win.
No, I say that is because using Eckler to open up that, when you have that open space, and that's what I was talking about with Lamar Jackson when you run cover 2, is that you just open up that middle of the field, and then Lamar Jackson also runs. Run some air routes, run some middle of the field, and I'm saying get Eckler to pull that defense back in, which opens Mike Williams back up downfield, and everything starts to click like it was at the beginning of the season. That's all I'm saying. So I do trust that they're smart enough, but I would just go Rodgers. I would go Hurts. And there might be one or my quarterback rankings are going to be a little different than yours. I just don't trust Herbert until I see it a little bit more, especially again because they're playing in Pittsburgh.
I'm going to trust primetime Herbert. Guys look good in primetime throughout his entire career. That's when he really shows up, when the cameras and the bright lights are on him. And I think that you can get Pittsburgh's defense deep. Like, their coverage is not good. And
No, but then if you just sit back, you don't need to because that's where I'm going with it. But so you're going to play the narrative. The funny thing is, when the lights were in his face in Oregon, that's when he folded.
yeah, but not in the NFL.
It's true. That's why I said at Oregon.
Yeah, but I thought they were going to try to get Beckham. I don't know why they didn't.
I think Beckham, Los Angeles, man.
Well, that is Los Angeles.
Oh, you mean the Chargers?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Packers at first for a
No,
second.
because they're missing that third wide receiver option out there. Like Jalen Guyton's fine. Joshua Palmer's done nothing. Like maybe play Parham some more.
Maybe LeBron James is a Rams fan. I mean, they're like super buddies. So he keeps it free. By the way, your Lamar Jackson #1 ranking. I love it on DraftKings as well. If there's no Khalil Mack again, and I have the bye, so that might be interesting. But that Khalil Mack, oh my God, Lamar Jackson might run for 100 yards against them.
And people are gonna be like scared to play Lamar for whatever reason because he had a bad game against the Dolphins.
That's why I was bringing. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Who cares?
DraftKings love it.
It was like it's like Gesicki. Do I drop Gesicki? It's like he had one, but he's a tight end.
Here's an interesting one. I hesitated on this one, Pat. Drop Hawkinson for Dan Arnold. I hesitated. I think you can make the case.
I think you can make the case, but that seems like such a lateral move.
It does. That's what I'm saying. It's like at that point, Hawkinson's only got 3 double-digit scores. Also, Darren Waller, also with only 3 double-digit scores.
Yeah, I mean, if you throw out his week 1, he might be like tight end 17 for the year.
I can do that while you're talking about your next thing.
Oh yeah, you figure that out. I'll go 11 to 20 here. Fields at 11, Hurts at Fields at 11, Hurts at 12, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Joe Burrow, Tua, Ryan Tannehill, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones at number 20. Then it's the rest of the jabronis that you probably don't want to play. There's only 2 teams on bye, so you don't have to make that many big decisions. Is Trevor Lawrence bad, or is this team just bad?
So he's playing poorly as a rookie, and this team is also bad. But you're not far off. Darren Waller since week 2, 14th at tight end. 15th? TJ Hawkinson.
Wow. Not great.
That is not great. And that's not even points per game, where they rank a little bit lower. Who, by the way, Dawson Knox is still 9th, even with missed time because of all this touch. That's so ridiculous. Yeah. Higbee, Freiermuth, Conklin, Ertz is at 10 in front of those guys.
And Ertz had one good game.
Uzma and his 2 giant games is all the way up at 7. There's your DraftKings guy. No, Lawrence really comes down to it's a cluster of things. You know, he's a rookie, and again, we go back. We always use Peyton Manning as the example, but it's true that it's more often rookie quarterbacks fail than succeed, and it doesn't damn their career. I still believe innate talent. Trevor Lawrence still has the highest ceiling. Still is a tier of his own. Now, can he be a bust like other quarterbacks have been? Absolutely. But he's also in a terrible spot. If one team was going to help ruin him, there's a few. You know, the Jets probably could have ruined him. The Lions could have ruined him. But Urban Meyer's doing him no favors. And yes, Jamal Agnew's fun for wide receivers. I say stop ignoring Jamal Agnew. But when you have Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, and Agnew, and the weapons you have with James Robinson, the fact that you had to be forced to James Robinson, and some of the plays you see them run, some of the options they do, it's just disjointed. And it almost seems like why I say is like that the Jaguars and Urban Meyer don't even know what they want to do week to week. It's like, let's throw this game plan out here and see if it works.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully. I mean, for I tanked my keeper league this year. Just a stockpile for next year. So I have 3 first-round picks next year, which is great. And I have a bunch of guys that I can keep. But I drafted both Fields and Lawrence. I think I'm just going to go with Fields.
You might have to at this point. I mean, Fields it's like, you know how much I love Fields. And we talked about it a few weeks ago. And the thing holding back Fields was not just Gase in the offense in his situation. Did I just say Gase? I did. I called Nagy Gase. It was Matt Nagy in this offense, but it was Justin Fields in his own right. Justin Fields said from day one when he got to the NFL, the pocket, he was uncomfortable in the pocket. And on top of that, he didn't run. And you need to run if you're Justin Fields. And it's opening everything up, including his big arm and these plays that you're seeing with Darnell Mooney. So, yeah, I think that Fields, if we're talking fantasy, this was always the appeal. This is to go back to the preseason conversation we had, Pat. If we said all 5 rookie quarterbacks were starting the entire season, Fields and Lance would have been at the top because of the rushing upside in fantasy.
Yeah, oh no, I completely agree. I just wanted to see some more. Lawrence felt like he could be a Burrow-type player. He'll have these big passing games, but he's also going to chuck in like maybe 20 a week with his
30.
legs, 25, and maybe rush for some touchdowns. And then all of a sudden you have a real discussion on your hands because, yeah, I'll take the guy that throws for 330 a game and 3 touchdowns and runs a little bit versus a guy who's not primarily going to be based on his running, but that's so much a part of his value that, I don't necessarily want to have to rely on that. I'd like a guy who can throw too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what comes down to. Although I do think that Fields it can be a quality thrower.
Do you want to
better than people are throwing in Hurts?
So I've been throwing out a starting lineup. I'm up to 3 wins somehow, which seems impossible because my team is so horrendous. But I've been trying to actively put my bad roster in and keep because we have a rule in our league where if you don't play a guy all year long, they become you can pick one of the guys that you haven't played but drafted to be an extra keeper. So you get 3 keepers plus a red shirt, as we call them. And I have too many guys that are red shirts, and I don't want to waste the red shirt. Like I have Javonte Williams, and you get to keep them in the round that you drafted them in. So if I used one of them, it would be a round up kind of thing. So I have Javonte Williams as a redshirt keeper in the 4th. I have Michael Thomas as a redshirt keeper in the 6th. I have Travis Etienne as a redshirt keeper in the 8th, and obviously I'm not going to use him anyway. And then I have Pat Freiermuth as a redshirt keeper in the 15th round. But that's 4 keepers right there. But I had better keepers than that anyway, is the problem. I don't know what to do. And now I have too many keepers on my hands.
That's always the issue. Sometimes people play too much for the future, and then not saying that's what your plan was, but I see people a lot of times, like even right now, I'm 7-3, but I'm thinking about blah 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 for next year. Like, just win this year. I know that wasn't your plan, and that's why I say that. It's like you still want to win this year. You can never guarantee something next year. You talk about keepers. Let's just say you went with that roster, Pat. There could be barely happened. Free agent signing, somebody drafted that all of a sudden destroyed, like James Robinson. Like everybody's sitting there, like, why are you even going to waste your time drafting a running back when you have James Robinson? And what did Urban Meyer come do? Draft ETN. You could have that happen with anybody. So, like, Javonte Williams looks like the answer next year. What if the Broncos go draft another running back and can continue with the timeshare?
Or keep Melvin Gordon.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
they can't be that crazy, can they?
We don't want to see it. So I have Fields or Lawrence I could pick from, but I also, when I traded with Cuss, like I have Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy now at really good keeps. Or I picked up Hunter Renfrow, so he's like a pretty good keep. Hunter Renfrow's good. He's a good fantasy. He's the reason my team's like not horrible.
He's your new Beasley.
He really is.
We love those guys.
I do. They're undervalued in fantasy every single year.
Hunter Renfrow Samurai, like Afro Samurai. There you go.
That's pushing it. Defense rankings.
Is there a nickname for Renfrow? You got to come up with one because you can't do the Bees anymore. You got to move on to Renfrow.
I believe I kept calling him 90s teen heartthrob Hunter Renfrow.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's just that's a very long one.
It is a very long one. So listen, sometimes names can be long. That's okay. Defense rankings for Week 11. The Cleveland Browns, number 1. 49ers, Titans, Patriots, Bucks on Monday Night Football against Danny Fums. Dolphins, Saints, Bills, Raiders, Eagles, Jets, Panthers, Steelers, Ravens, Cardinals, Packers, Texans. I am throwing the Texans in there. So I was looking up the Texans. They now have a top 10 pass rushing unit in football, which blew my mind. And Tennessee's, listen, they're not going to beat Tennessee, but if they were ever to beat Tennessee, that is exactly how they would do it. Would be just constantly disrupt whatever's going on in the backfield, make Tannehill make a mistake. Because that offensive line still isn't good.
It still isn't. But, yeah, you're having about 17. You're not spending too much time on that.
No, but I will be playing them for $2,000 on DraftKings, though.
Yeah, I would put the Panthers at 10. No, I put the Panthers at 9. I like Heineke. He's too aggressive, and the Panthers, especially with that secondary now that they're getting meshed together, and they still do get some decent pressure after the Heineke's making mistakes every single week. That you talk about outlier game. Anybody panicking about the Bucks after that game? Nah. But I love some Heineke, but I also, for fantasy purposes, I love picking defenses against them.
I'll move them to number 10. I'm going to keep the Raiders up against Cincinnati, top tier pass rush versus a bottom tier offensive line.
Sure. I guess I trust Heineke to make more mistakes than Burrow does, but either way, it's 9 and 10.
When's J.C. Horn coming back? Is he?
No.
It seemed like he was going
Horn.
like it's J, like Jaycee.
Yeah.
Because there were reports that he would make it back before the end of the year. Because their secondary might be vicious if he can come back. Oh, we didn't even talk about this.
2 weeks.
Is Cam starting this week?
Oh yeah,
For like 100%?
no question. There's no question about it.
PJ Walker looked pretty good last week.
I know. I liked it. So 9 hours ago, Carolina Panthers injuries on ESPN. Here we go. No, that's just ESPN. Terrible.
All right, they have very
Defaulting
bad.
it's updated, but it's updated for the most recent injury and still showing the injury news from JC Horn back when he was put on the IR because it's on the same page.
Yeah.
So there you go. Here we go. Carolina huddle. So he's potentially getting back to playing within a week or two. But that's rumor. So there you go. There's still nothing out on him.
If they can tread water, like they're still in the mix for the last playoff spot. They can be dangerous in the playoffs if they have their defense back.
They could be. I was just talking about the fact that Cam might send this team to the playoffs.
I mean, let's not forget, like
Cam
Cam was the last time that we saw Cam play football, besides like his 2 plays last week, he was brutal.
Oh, it was from a passing game side of things. That's why everybody's like, Robbie Anderson's back. I was like, yeah, I'll pick him back up and stash him on the bench. But the same way that I'm picking back up and stashing Allen Robinson in case it continues, but there's no way in hell I'm putting him in my lineup yet. Cam Newton as a passer was brutal, but as a fantasy player, sure. But that's the thing people said too, is like Cam Newton top 10 quarterback the rest of the way. No, because unlike Taysom Hill, yes, they both have similar rushing upside and could run for 2 touchdowns every single week. The difference is Taysom Hill is remarkably accurate and throwing 18 for 24. Cam Newton, as you just mentioned, just last year was like, is he going to throw for 100 yards? Like that's really what it comes down to.
If you can pick up the ground as a wide receiver, that's going to be a heavily targeted option in the Cam Newton offense.
Oh, you're so mean.
Rankings will be
updated.
updated.
NFC is gross, by the way.
What's
You're
that?
talking about playoffs. I looked at it over the weekend, and I was looking at the AFC. And I was like, oh, there's going to be a nice battle for the 5, 6, 7 in the AFC. And then I looked at the NFC, and I was like, I don't even care who's outside the top 4. Like, who cares?
Yeah, but you'll always have that like spoiler team that could potentially come in. Like Washington could have beat Tampa in the playoffs last year. Like that could have happened.
That was last year.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always one of those teams every single. Like I think that
I know they just beat him this week.
like Indy might be pretty frisky. I guess that's
Speaking of frisky, we didn't talk about this when we were talking about wide receivers. 2 games in a row, and I hate watching as much games as I have, but a little bit of concern that I'm not starting. Like I know we glossed over Debo and Ayuk, but I'm not starting Ayuk against Jacksonville. 2 weeks in a row, that pass defense has been playing admirably. I'm not saying they're a worrisome one, but
it does feel like their defense is kind of back.
It's playing a lot better than it was. I'm playing Debo, no question. Still, and I'm playing Kittle, no question. But I don't think I'd risk Ayuk after. You win against Jacksonville by just running it down. You play the same exact game plan you just played against the Rams.
So Jacksonville, Atlanta, Houston, all to win this week, parlayed together, 45-1. Thank you, Jake.
That's only 45-1.
I didn't actually do that.
Okay. I was gonna say,
look
it's
up
gotta be
what
a
it
lot
is.
more than that.
I don't know. Let's see. No, it wouldn't be that crazy. Let's see. Atlanta is plus 240.
Yeah.
Houston is plus 3. Like the Titans are only 10-point favorites against Houston. Like it's not as outrageous as maybe you would think. In Jacksonville, It actually is 53-1.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
I would have expected more like 60, but
You know what? I'm gonna play that for $10 right now. There we go.
I love it.
It still doesn't even seem worth it at 53-1.
No, it doesn't.
Feels like I would probably need more. Too late. If those 3 teams win, I win $541.
You already put it in there?
Yeah,
you already locked it
I
in?
just placed it.
I am so angry. I missed. I mean, there was something in my gut that said don't do it, but I was like, it's the Rams, it's Jimmy Garoppolo, and freaking Jalen Ramsey missed a six-way parlay on Garoppolo having an interception in that game that was going to pay out 100-1.
Ow, that's a bummer. I just bet all my money on San Francisco. That was it. I didn't feel the need for a same game parlay. It's like if I know one thing is that everyone's betting the Rams, I am going to bet on the 49ers.
Oh, I hit so much on it too because I took the under on the Mitchell rushing yards, even though he ran 27 times because I put it all the way at the top. The Ramsey interception. Bastard.
No, it's going to get you. All right, Jake Ciely, when will you have your rankings out? 12:01 a.m. Eastern time on Wednesday?
Yes, sir. And then just like you, updated every single day all the way through. Fridays, Saturdays, sometime around, we get all those news and do it all the way up to Sunday kickoff, just like you do.
Yeah, maybe I'll quit. Get my Sundays back.
You just like threw that out there. Maybe I'll quit.
No, just
You got enough people working. Are you like one of those like conglomerates now? You just got so many people working to make the money for you now that you just don't need it?
Listen, I'm still the pretty face out here that needs to go sell everything. I've actually moved most of my a lot of my business back to like I hire people to do content and like me still doing my show, but I'm still doing like ad sales and just stupid shit like that. Sucks.
You were here locally on TV for DraftKings.
Am I on the Sweat in the morning?
No, it was the commercial.
Oh, like
it was
the Pat and Reed infomercial?
Oh, was that from like 2 years ago too?
No, it was filmed pre-pandemic. It was right after my first son was born because they asked me to fly out like a month after he was born for like 2 days to go to LA to film
3 years
that.
ago?
Yeah, it's almost 3 years old now.
Yeah, there you go.
It was fun. They sent me a script, but I didn't realize that they had sent me a script because like the attachment didn't get sent. So we sat down. I was like, "So what are we doing for this?" Like, you didn't read the script. I was like, "What script?" Well, just put it on that prompter. I'll read it. Don't worry about it. I think it turned out they're still using it, so it's not horrible.
No, I saw it. I could just tell it was the hair is what gave it away.
That it was me?
Yeah. No, get the hair that like it was older. It was like 3 years ago. It was like there's that shorter. Yeah, that closer to the scalp.
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back to that look. I'll lose some weight first, then I'll go back to that look. I had to like starve myself for a month because I knew I was going to be on a nationally televised commercial. I was like, gotta look thin.
Are you gonna tell people to put something in the comments if they're still watching, so they know if anybody ever made it this far?
No one made it this far. Are you kidding me? Maybe on the audio podcast they made it this far, but on the video, not a chance.
People are at audio pod. People are driving off bridges at this point if they're still listening to this nonsense.
No, this is like inside baseball. People love this stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Jake Ciely at AllInKid, theathletic.com. For me, at Mayo Media Network, at the PME, playing the Listeners League, smash like, sub to the channel. If we get 1,000 people from this show to sub to the channel new, we'll never talk about this stuff at the end of the show again. How about that?
I got one more for you.
Ooh.
Pat McAfee ignored me at SmackDown.
Okay. Do you know Pat McAfee?
No, but no, because I knew somebody through the industry that knew his agent, and I tried to because it's here in Norfolk, and I had ringside seats that legitimately like the ring where it cuts out like that. The table was like I looked left and was staring at Pat McAfee 10 feet, if that, away from me. And I was like, can he just come on my podcast? Because we talk wrestling stuff. Like I'm not trying to get on my show so everybody listens to Pat McAfee. And they declined. So then I wore my band Kicker shirt and I was trying to get his attention. And he looked at me a couple times and just ignored me. I was like, fine, screw you. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
You got big time by Pat McAfee.
I mean, that's somebody that can big time me.
I was gonna say, if I was Pat McAfee, I'd probably big time you too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, of course. You want to big time me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't have to talk on the show, all I would do is big time you. But unfortunately, you're bigger than me, so that doesn't really work out.
Maybe that's why I can't get dates. All the girls want to big time me.
That's it. Everyone just wants a big time Jake Ciely. That's the move. It makes everyone feel better about themselves. Everyone wins besides you in this situation.
There you go. Now you can get out of here.
There we go. The rankings will be updated. They're down in the description, as is the injury report. I'll be back on Wednesday evening with Cust and Jeff for the spread picks. But until then, I will see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!